Okay, so what we're going to do is, again, I'm going to show you guys how to do some of these details. Like on the back of my shoe, I've got this kind of section that has the holes in it. I've got some heavily textured fabric here on some of it, even on my shoelaces. And then I've got this sort of like knitted fabric. I don't even know if it's fabric, but technically. But I've got this sort of netted section right here that I'm going to show you guys how to do. Some other things too is I'm going to show you how to make parts look three-dimensional. Like for these sections, if you guys look at the shoes, your shoes are not just all one solid piece of fabric, so it's a series of layers that have been stitched together. So we want this, like if you look at mine, got this big gray part right here. This is stitched on top of everything else, so how do I make this look like it's on top of this? And a lot of it has to do with how you attack these edges. So I'll show you how to do that, okay? Actually, that'll be the first thing. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these edges, okay? I've got edges like up here to deal with. I've got back here. Little trick, and it doesn't take much at all. What you do is you kind of have to erase the edge there, and then all I'm going to do is make this stick out farther than the section under it. So now it looks like it's on top of, okay? And I'm also going to do that up here, because again, this section is on top of, it's an additional piece that's been stitched on top. So again, you know, that little detail right there. And it's funny to think that something like that is, it's a big deal, but it is. Making sure that these two do not line up. Making it so that they don't line up makes it look like the one piece is really truly on top. I'm going to do it right here too, because this is a separate piece to this. So I'm going to erase that edge there. I'm going to pop that up and make it look like it's on top, just like that. So go through right now and just find all those areas that you can kind of pop out stuff to make it look more three-dimensional. And really, it's going to be around your outside edges. You're not going to see that here on the inside. Some things you can do, I will give you a couple tips, like on the interior parts of your shoe. So like right here, I can see how thick that material is. So what I'm going to do, first I need to kind of clean up this edge. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to show how thick that edge is by just giving it another edge. And then at some point I lose it up here in the curve because my perspective is changing. So there. So now I can see how thick that additional piece of material is on there. And I'll look for any other, I actually see it back here too. So see it on the back of the shoe. Again, clean that up. So I'm going to clean that up and add that other dimension that I see there, just like that. And that'll help make it look more 3D. So I'm going to look for all those areas and ask myself, can I see how thick the material is? If I can, then I'm going to add that information in. If this part is on top of this, it needs to stick out. It's the same thing with those shoelaces, you know. Double check, make sure that those shoelaces that are going up and over the top of your shoe do actually go up and over and past that edge. There's a lot of people who are still having a hard time grasping that concept, and they're ending their shoelace right at the edge of the shoe when it should go past it. So make sure you're doing that. Okay, so all these little details, so these little things right here, look for those opportunities. You know, right there, showing how thick that is. Find those opportunities. So kind of work on that for just a few minutes. It really doesn't take all that long to do those things. And again, it makes a huge difference in your drawing. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to deal with some of those textile details that I told you about. So this should be our last thing that we're kind of dealing with. Now, if you guys look at, I'll start with this side. So I've got these dots. Now, some of you guys might have areas of your shoe where you have like different shapes kind of cut out. Mine are just small dots or small holes. You might have something different, so you'll need to make that adjustment if you see it. But the way I'm going to do that, since these are kind of lined up, actually not kind of, they are lined up quite well. What I'm going to do, just so I make sure that everything is lined up correctly, I'm actually going to draw some lines very lightly where I want to put these. And then the idea would be is that I'm going to get rid of those lines when I'm done, probably inking over them. I probably won't erase them quite yet, but now if you notice, I am curving these lines. I'm not making them real straight. I'm slightly giving them a curve, and the reason why is even though they are straight lines, like these dots are a line straight, I'm going to curve these lines so it looks like it's on a curved form, okay? So I want it to look like it's curved. Straight lines, but on a curved surface. It's almost like if you were sitting on the couch watching TV and you have a striped blanket laying across your legs, how would those stripes, you know, wrap around and curve around your legs? So that's the same idea. All right, so I'm going to just lightly do that, and then all I'm going to do is now start drawing these holes. Now I'm actually going to draw mine larger than what I need them to be. And the reason why is because when we ink, that does take up some space. So I find a lot of times if I make things too small and then I ink over them, then they're really too small. So I'm going to make these just a little bit bigger than what I need them to be. And then I'm just going to start in and just add that until I run out of room. And then again, I'm not going to try to go, I mean, I could, I guess. I could go through and try to erase these guidelines, but I might just wait till after I ink, and that might be easier, but since these holes are kind of small. So yeah, so I don't know. This is when a pencil eraser does come in handy. Those pink erasers sometimes are just too big to get in those little areas. So then that's what it looks like at the end. Okay? So as you can see, I did make them larger. And that's just because I'm going to ink over them eventually. Need to add, I think, one more right there. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to talk about this part. This is a part a lot of people have questions about, and a lot of you guys do have something maybe similar on your shoe. Your netting might be really close together, or it might be very far apart, so you'll need to make adjustments based on that. Okay? So the key thing, what I'm going to do is I try to just find one line. So if you look at it, it's essentially, and I'll draw it up here, it's essentially just lines that are going like this, okay? But I need to put them down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just trying to find a line, and I'm just going to follow it. Now the thing I have to understand is that this is, again, on a three-dimensional form. So they're not going to be perfectly straight. They're going to be curved. They're going to have bumps in them. So if you're not good at drawing a straight line, this is right up your alley. You're going to make it even look more natural because of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by drawing. I got to figure out where I want to start. Drawing one part of that. And mine's pretty close. And again, I want to take in consideration that this is not a flat surface. So the form is going to change. I'm just going to draw these lines like this. Now, if you have something similar to mine, but maybe yours is chunkier looking or maybe farther apart, you would be spacing your stuff out different. And again, this is where, for those of you who don't know how to draw a straight line and can't draw a straight line very well, this is right up your alley. You'll do a great job. And you can see, even though I'm taking my time to do stuff nice and neat, it's still not a straight line. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Let's see if I can zoom in. With just one section of those lines on there. Now I need to go over and do the cross. Go across. And that's going to finish my lines. I need to see which way do I want to go. And again, same thing. I don't want to necessarily do these lines really straight. And there you go. And I'll zoom out so you can kind of see how that looks all together. So again, depending on what your shoe looks like, mine was a pretty fine, like real small kind of netting. So that's why my lines are so close together. If yours is not, then you would be spreading yours out much farther. You wouldn't be doing as much as I would be. I have also too on this section of blue fabric, it kind of has this sort of like almost dotted pattern on there. And again, I'm just going to go through and just kind of mark those in with just some dots like this. Maybe you see yours as being something, actually mine is not quite dots. I need to change that. They're more like dash marks on mine. So I'm just going to make dash marks. So I'm just going to fill this whole area up with these dash marks. Some of you guys might see textures or like a heavy kind of weave on your fabric that was used for your shoelaces. So you may need to add stuff on there. So now you should be working on those textile details. Another thing you can work on too is the stitching of your shoe. A lot of you guys will notice that the stitching is also included as part of the design. So again, that's just something you can go along the edges with and just make, and it depends on, again, how heavy that thread was that they used to stitch the pieces together. Maybe yours is heavier and thicker. So you'll just go through and add that where you need it. Actually, I have 2 layers right here. 2 lines of stitching. Okay, so now you can add that. All right, so the rest of the day is just dedicated to finishing up these drawings and getting all your details in.